In this episode, we'll cover catch-all spaces and how they can be your secret weapon in keeping the rest of your home organized. This is a Little Debbie, a bite-sized version of the longer podcast, Upcycling with Deb. I'm your host, Deb Colameta. I wrote a #1 best-selling book called Best Offer, Best Life. It teaches you how to leverage online yard sales to create wealth in your life. And this podcast is all about taking what you've already got and making it better, the best that it can be. Check out my website, thedebsite.com, to download a free bonus. Do you have a junk room, a junk area, a garage, a shed, an area in your basement, your whole basement, your attic, a porch? Do you have an area in your home that's kind of like your catch-all space? Sometimes people, if they have extra bedrooms, they might put extra things they want to deal with later in one of the extra unused bedrooms. This is like a life-size version of a junk drawer. And you know what? It's okay to have one of these spaces in your home. The problem is when you have one of these spaces and it's at capacity, and then it starts to bleed into other areas of your home. If you have a basement that's nice and neat, and you can put things away very easily, you can access things easily, it tends to spread to the other areas of your house in a good way. If your basement is organized, if your garage is organized, then probably the rest of your house is organized. If you have a hot mess express of a front porch and you come home every day and you step into that space and the first thing that greets you is clutter, that's not a good feeling. It's not a good way to be welcomed home. So you want to make sure that that catch-all space is a little bit out of sight. It shouldn't be too out of sight though, because if it's too out of sight, then you won't deal with it. Sometimes I feel like it's better to have stuff that you want to put away in the middle of your high traffic living area, because then you're really forced to deal with it rather than putting it off to the side and not looking at it. And then it becomes part of the landscape of your home because you're used to looking the other way or ignoring it. But having a catch-all area for your things that are kind of like in process or a holding pen, that's okay. And it can help you keep the clutter at bay for the rest of your house. But again, as you start to notice it creeping in, then that's when you need to deal with that catch-all space and really just take a couple of hours to sort through the things, see if you can sell anything, discard anything, and that will help keep the rest of your house neat. I had an instance the other day where I realized my kitchen table was becoming just this ground zero for everything that we were trying to accomplish in our lives. I had my laptop there. I had the kids' laptops there for school. They're trying to do virtual learning from the kitchen table. We're all in each other's spaces. My garage was very clean over the summer. I was able to pull the cars into it and I was really excited. But then virtual learning started. And what happened was we had to move around some furniture in our primary living space and we pushed it out to the garage, things that we didn't want to get rid of, but we just didn't have room for them and a desk or a learning area. So we pushed it out to the garage and now the garage feels like it's full. And then what happened was, because the garage was full, and that's usually where I keep my extra things as I'm trying to go through them, then the porch area, that room that connects the garage to the rest of the house, that became the catch-all. And when that became too cold to deal with, because in New England it was really chilly and that space gets really chilly out there, and I don't really want to spend a lot of time in a cold room, then I started to kind of ignore that. And because that room was messy, it started to bleed into the kitchen because the kitchen's attached to the porch, which is attached to the garage. So then I was noticing that my kitchen was starting to get messy. So that's when I said, hold up. Let's clear off the kitchen table. Let's try to find a new space for everything and try to put things where they belong. I started getting rid of some extra toys, some extra things that I hadn't had time to deal with all the virtual learning. And that started to create the ebb and flow of the junk. It started to flow away from my living space. If you have one of these little areas in your home, it's totally okay, and you should embrace it and use it as a tool. But if you do have one of these catch-all spaces, the catch in using a catch-all space is that you have no excuse for the clutter in the rest of your home. If you have a basement that's kind of where you stick everything and you deal with it later, I've been known to do that in the past before, but I really try to make it so that I have no excuse for having clutter out in the rest of the home. Make sure that you contain it if you can't eliminate it. That is the key. Thanks for listening to this episode of Little Debbie, a bite-sized version of the podcast Upcycling with Deb. I'm your host, Deb Colameta. You can reach me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Deb Colameta. I hope you'll get your free downloadable guide on my website, thedebsite.com.